Hello, everyone, and welcome to Power Podcasting. I'm your host, Yolanda Viderjean. Thank you, and welcome for joining me this evening. We're going to jump right over here and get things started. Just make sure I remember to share the screen. I love clicking buttons. There we go. And we're going to try this, and hopefully it'll behave. Okay, there's me. Hello. And I don't know if it'll keep me there, but if it does, we'll get lucky. Nope, I've gone bye-bye. Nope, there. Hello. Okay, here we go. We are going to talk about power podcasting, and as I said, there we are. It's being brought to you by the Yolanda Argent Coaching, and we're doing power podcasting basics, better known as how to create an audio podcast. Now, here's a little bit about myself. There's me. I'm an author, a coach, a media talent, and radio host. My podcast is heard weekly on 96.5 FM in the Sacramento, California area, and I have over a decade of experience as a podcaster and radio host. Now, you're asking a lot of times, what is podcasting? Well, essentially, they're audio files that people listen to, they can subscribe to, because you've created a series of them, but they can also be video as well. The way they listen to them is once you've recorded them, you upload them to a specific spot. You create something that's called an RSS feed, or you can send them a link and it downloads directly to whatever they want to listen to it on. Podcasts can be listened to on tablets, desktops, your phone. There are 4 types of podcasts. You've got the solo, the interview, the multi-host, and video, as I said. A solo podcast is, well, as you guessed it, it's you sitting there presenting a monologue, talking to the mic or the camera, kind of like what I'm doing right now. The challenge is to keep it interesting and make sure your audience is engaged while you're talking. The benefits of doing a solo podcast, for those who wish to improve their public speaking, you can use it to practice. It gets you comfortable with talking into a mic or in front of a camera. If you want to move over into being a performance artist, this is a great way for you to practice doing characters or different voices and various accents. You create small files, you save them, you edit them, make them sound really pretty, and then you upload them to your website and offer yourself as a voiceover person. An interview podcast is where you, the host, have guests on your show and you interview them. It's really interesting because it adds a second viewpoint on a specific topic, and if you are doing a solo show, it adds a little something extra that you do every now and then. They do, however, present the challenge, and that generally is having the other party show up. You don't want to be caught without having a guest on the show, especially if you've advertised it. Everyone will tell you, and you'll hear that you're supposed to make sure your guests have a great microphone. That's not really true. If you have a celebrity on your show, they could call you. More than likely, they're going to be using their cell phone because they're traveling. All the people know is that, hey, you're the cool podcast host that managed to get XYZ celebrity on your show. They will put up with the static, I can assure you. And by the way, you're going to have to learn how to do a little bit more editing, should that happen, just to clean it up a bit. Interview benefits of doing the interview podcast is that it helps you to establish you as an industry leader simply because of the guests you have on your show. If you are going to do that, I recommend having your own list of questions to invoke a dialogue. That way you'll be known as an evocative interviewer with poignant questions by everybody that listens to the show or comes on. It's a great way to brand yourself. Recommendations for this, as I said, I would recommend that you do a pre-recorded show. You do not, and I repeat, do not want to get caught with dead air because your person didn't call in or didn't show up for the show. You have time to edit and make it sound real pretty, and you're going to add your intro and outro to it. And you always have a go-to guest on standby, which happens to be the person that can jump on a broadcast at any point and talk about anything with you. If that isn't going to work and your guest doesn't show up, make sure you have that list of topics that you can talk about endlessly and to cover the time of your show. A multi-host broadcast is, well, just that. You have more than two hosts, and it turns into a conversation style. It's a great way to add an interest factor and consistently present more than one viewpoint. Some of the challenges of a multi-host podcast come from scheduling. Getting everybody together at the same point, plus making sure they all have good equipment. That's kind of hard, unless, of course, you're recording in one studio. And then you have to spend time editing your podcasts together. Some of the benefits of having a multi-host podcast is that you're going to multiply your listening audience by the size of your co-host network. And you can feed off each other's energies. Now, we're talking video podcasts. A video podcast is great, but there are a couple of cons on that one. The good part is it keeps people engaged. So you can have the talking head things, or you can, do an interview style if you're in the same studio. The con of this is that you're also going to have to learn how to work a video camera. Unless, of course, you happen to have a video camera pro who's a friend of yours and can come in and shoot this for you on a regular basis. Plus, guess what? You're going to have to learn how to edit video as well. Now, let's talk about defining your podcast. Why do you want a podcast? What is the mission of your podcast? And what do you want to achieve with your podcast? Who is your podcast target audience? You need to define your target audience. How will your podcast benefit your target audience? Name of your podcast, and how long is it going to be? These are all topics that you're going to have to think about, and you're going to write them down. What is the purpose? Are you doing it to brand your business? Are you trying to build an audience to buy your book? Are you trying to establish yourself as an industry leader? Or maybe you just want to express yourself creatively, maybe read poetry every week for a few minutes. Once you've decided all the reasons why you want to have one, you need to decide who you're talking to. After all, that's what a podcast is. It's an audio file that people are supposed to listen to. So you need to define your podcast audience. This involves creating something called an avatar. That's the little being's image that's going to stay inside your head while you create your show. So here are a couple of tips for that. You're going to ask yourself, what gender is your audience? How old are they? What is their education level? What is their income level? What kind of car do they drive? What kind of music do they like? And where do they shop? Are they married, single, widowed, divorced? Do they have children? Do they have pets? Where do they work? What's their job title? Do they commute? Do they like to travel? Where do they shop? And the reason where do they shop is on there twice. Once is for you to tell whether or not they are actually online shoppers or are they brick and mortar store shoppers. And then where do they shop, as in, are they Macy's kind of people or are they Target kind of people? You're going to need to know these things. You're going to write them down and listen to your mind as you go through each of the questions. You may even make up some questions on your own. But as you do this, you're going to start to develop this little image of your target audience in your mind. Now, how are you going to benefit that audience? If you focus your efforts on creating the most interesting and engaging content possible, you're going to naturally attract an audience that will grow as your community. You're going to encourage your audience to participate with your podcast via live chat if you have one, and know which topics garner the most interest from your audience. You let them help you shape the direction of your podcast. Now let's talk about the name. Now you're going to be a podcaster, so what are we calling your podcast? See, everything comes to life once it's been named, not just in part of a category. So think of tornadoes and hurricanes, cars, jet planes, ships, they all have names. It defines the item and it brings it to life. So your podcast name must jump off the screen and grab the person searching for your material right off the bat. Here are a few tips for naming your podcast. Naming your podcast is creating your brand. I would recommend using your name if that's possible. Make your topic of the show part of that name as well. My previous shows, one of my names is Dr. Andy, and I do Writers Radio. There you go. My name and the topic of the podcast. Also keep it short. It makes it more memorable and takes up less time. If you can't come up with a name for your podcast that's catchy or you don't like your name, try one of these free online name generators. Antimodal, NameStation, FantasyNameGenerators.com, Mithril and Images, and Public Radio Name Generator. What is your podcast topic? Now that you've named and decided on your audience, how about telling them what you're talking about? Selecting your topic can narrow your focus and create a niche. This helps you select an audience to fulfill their needs by only presenting information that supports that topic. Now you need to ask yourself, can you fill 30 to 60 minutes of just talking about some subject matter? If you can, you found your topic. Now what I need you to do now is you got to whittle that topic down. If you say you're going to do a business podcast, then what kind of business? What aspect of the business will you cover? A good starting point is to figure out which topic you can talk about naturally and endlessly. That's probably your passion. In my case, the business is finance. The topic in finance, taxes. I get specific because I can do shows on investing, how to plan for retirement after you're 40, how to go up, save money for kids' college. Each of those is its own topic. Now that you've done that, pop on over to iTunes and check out other podcasts that are in your niche. Is it a crowded niche with a whole lot of podcasts? And if so, how do you differentiate your show from theirs? For example, that's where the sub-niches come in. If you're doing something on taxes and I decide, okay, well, we could talk about doing school. All right, how to save taxes moving to across country to attend college. What can you write off? There's a sub-niche for you. What is the podcast mission statement? Well, it's a crucial part of your success because it helps to keep you focused on presenting just the one thing and doing it to the best of your ability. Your mission statement will also let your listeners know what to expect, and as you can see, that makes the crowd very, very happy. So, now that you've got all that under your belt, you need to figure out how long you want your podcast to be. It can be anywhere from 5 minutes to 5 hours, but remember your listener's attention span. If you're going to do a longer podcast, break it up over 26 minutes. Listeners generally tune out by the 20-minute mark, and they'll try and hang in there for an additional 3 minutes. Everything after that, they're not hearing you. But if you want, you can always throw bumpers in there and let them know what's coming up next, so they need to wake back up. Let's talk about setting up your podcast. You're going to need some equipment. So this is where you decide on whether or not you want to do a headset or a microphone, audio editing software, file storage, your website, social media platforms, your RSS feed, your email capture software, your domain name, what to record, how to record your phone calls, ways to do it, and your intro and outro. Apparently, we have some extra stuff. All right, headsets or microphones. When you are starting out in a podcast, you want the best equipment for your budget. You don't have to be fancy, but you do have to be good. Headsets or microphone. They each have their pros and cons. The benefits of using a headset is that it allows you flexibility. Simply because you're free to move around, change the direction of the mic on some of the models, and it's quite comfortable, as you can see from our little demonstrator right there. Here's some recommendations for you. Sennheiser makes everyone sound good. You can't go wrong there. Logitech, Plantronics, Logitech Wireless, or Audio-Technica, as you can see, varying price levels. Definitely. All good models. Microphones, industry leaders. The best thing about a microphone is that you set them and forget them. There's not a lot of adjusting needed. They're not very complicated. You plug and play, and they can give you great sound. Microphone recommendations are the new Professional Podcaster Studio mic on one end, and then you've got the Audio-Technica on the other end, and everything in between. Now, if you plan to travel and interview people, I highly recommend using the Samsung Go microphone because it's portable. Some of the pros of using a headset, as I've already stated, are flexibility, freedom of movement, and some of the cons of using a headset, the quality of audio can vary, and you can lose the signal if you're using a wireless one. The pros of using a microphone: quality of audio, easy to set up. The cons of using a microphone: needs to separate headset, and you can't really move about. Audio editing software. When you start to make audio recordings of yourself, you'll need to learn how to breathe and not stammer. It's tough at first, but you'll get better and more the more you create. When you are ready to do that, we recommend the industry favorite of Audacity. It's a free software download that's easy to learn, and all you have to do is type in the word Audacity in any search engine. It'll pop up endless places to download it. Once it's installed, you put on your headphones, set up your mic or just your headset. You start recording your voice, just say random dialogue, stop the recording, and then listen to yourself. Now you're going to learn how to use the editing software to remove all of your stammers, stutters, ums, ahs, ohs, so's, and you knows. And Audacity comes with a wonderful help aid there. They have their own wiki. You're going to then create your own intro and outro, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. You're going to save it as an MP3 file, which is the easiest to upload. And then you're going to upload it to your Google Drive folder. Again, something we're going to come to in a moment. An intro and outros. One of the best things you can do to practice is creating your show's intro and outro. Now, creating an intro is exactly what it means: introduce yourself. Basically, all you're doing is identifying the show, its host, and you're welcoming listeners for tuning in. Just think about how you hear Johnny Carson's show or Jimmy Kimmel or any of the nights shows that come on, the narrator that talks at the beginning. That's pretty much an intro. An outro is exactly the same thing, except for, of course, it comes at the end of the show. And that's where you're going to thank listeners for tuning in. Once again, you're going to give them your show's URL, the domain name. You're going to tell them the contact email so you can get feedback, or if you want, you can give them a phone number. And then you're going to tell them when the next show is. Now we're going to talk about file storage. I recommend using Google Drive to host your podcast because it's free and it gives you ample storage. There's a one-time setup of the drive, which basically involves creating a folder for you to upload your MP3s to. None of the podcast listeners will ever see the folder. They just get a link. Google Drive will create the link for you, and then you're going to have to shorten it, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. Now, iTunes needs specific artwork. So once you have your iTunes artwork covered and created, upload that to the Google file too. As you can see here, when I said it does a link, You're going to right-click on your show, and then it'll click the little button that says Get Link, and it'll produce something that looks like that. I mean, that's hideously long, but that's an individual show. That's why we go over to the short link service. You can use TinyURL, tiny.cc, Owly, BitDo, Bitly, but if you're a diehard Google fan, Google has one too, which is google.gl, hence Google. Basically, all you do is you copy the long link, you paste it in the little box they give you, and click the button, and poof, it sends you a short link. Now, what you want to do in some cases is add your branding. So TinyCC, BitDo, and Bitly will all allow you to edit your brand. And what you want to do is, at that end, you're going to add your show's name and the episode number. It's very good for branding, and it's also good for you to keep track of what shows you're doing. Let's talk a little bit about how shows are distributed via RSS Feed, which is Rich Site Summary, originally the RDF Site Summary, often called Really Simple Syndication. It uses a family of standard web feed formats to publish frequently created information, which means it updates constantly. So that's why it's used for blogs, news headlines, audio, and video. It always contains something called an item, and the items contain the title, the description, and a link. Now, I told you all of this just so you'll know what it is. Bottom line is there's no way you're going to create one yourself because, well, it's complicated. So there's some free resources for you to try. Google Feed Burner, Autopia, Feedity, love the name, RSS Feed Generator, and iTunes has their own. Once you've created the RSS feed, you're going to copy that link and you're just going to paste it in your podcast folder again. Keep it in your Google Drive. You're going to need that link because it's a single link that it creates to establish the name of your show. You're going to keep that because you're going to need to submit it to iTunes, Google, Yahoo, and Bing to allow those to connect to their podcast, and people who use those services can get a hold of you via RSS feed using any mobile device. Now, there are many podcast websites on the internet. All they do is host podcasts. Blog Talk Radio, Stitcher, Podbean. Podbean actually hosts both audio and video. The reason I want you to have your own podcast website is because, well, you own the material. The only way it gets removed is if you choose to take it down. When you host on someone else's site, if some FCC regulation changes and they're required to take down, you'll take down your the whole show. They won't just remove the episode. Your show's just gone. You don't want that. So, oops, speeding up here. The number 2 reason is you can sell advertising on your web space. You can't do that if you're on somebody else's hosted site, but you can do it on your own website, which is a way to monetize your show. And it keeps your brand alive. The more people who come to your specific website to listen to your show, the more Google is going to love you. And the next time somebody types in something to do with your niche, your show is going to pop up on the top of the Google search engines. Things that you want on your for your podcast site, I would recommend going with something easy. Signmarkhosting.com has the easy one-click WordPress install as well as website builder. They also offer low-cost domains. Right now, I think they have a special going on where if you get either the website builder or the WordPress, that your domain name comes for free. Their customer service people are really, really helpful, and they're available 24/7, located down in the Pacific Southwest. I think they're in Arizona. Things that you want to put on your website. You're going to put, of course, naturally, your guests have their own page. So that includes their photo, their bio, links to any of their products, services, or books. You're always going to make sure you have audio players on your website for actual reasons so people can listen to your podcast. You're going to have an archive page. You're going to have your contact page, so in case people want to book to get a hold of you or leave feedback. You're always going to have your email sign up so you can grow your listeners. Make sure your mission statement's on your tagline, your podcast name naturally, and a logo if you choose to create one, as well as your picture so people can identify you, the host. It makes you famous. Now, domain names. Your domain name should be the name of your podcast. It's for branding purposes. It helps increase your SEO, and it helps people remember the show, and it's a lot more professional. Email capture software does exactly that. You have to have a way to keep track of your listening audience. So you get this software, they fill out a little form, you've seen them on the websites, put your name and your email, and it creates a list. And what you want that list for is in case you have something to market sometime, you can always advertise to them. In order to create that list, you do need to have the way to capture those names. And there are lots of free ones like MailChimp, Constant Contact, iContact, and Campaigner. Thing is, they offer limited functionality. But when you're first starting out, they'll work. Once you get up some, you're going to want to look at Active Campaign or e-marketing from SignMark Hosting, because once you hit that 500 mark, you're going to have to start paying for it, and you want the maximum options to be able to work with your email list. They offer, I believe it's $10 a month for the 500 contacts, and it's unlimited emailing to your network every month. Let's talk about that phone interview that you're going to be doing, because unless you have your own studio and all your guests are local and they come to your studio to record, you're going to pretty much always be on a phone. So I recommend using some of the free online conferencing services like Free Conferencing, Free Conference, Start Meeting, or TalkShoe to record your phone calls. Start Meeting also will let you record video. So all of those sites are going to provide you with a phone number. They're going to give you a guest ID number, which is what you give to them when they call in. You have the host ID number, and they're going to let you record the phone conversations. And once you're done with the call and you hang up, it will start converting it to something that can be downloaded. It's going to give you an MP3 file. So here we are, the 7 steps for recording and uploading. You're going to schedule your guest. They come on, you do the interview. You're going to wait until after the interview is over with. It'll notify you when the recording is ready. You download your MP3 to the hard drive, use your Audacity software to edit, add your intro and outro. Then you're going to upload it back to the Google Drive. It's going to create that long link. You're going to take that over to the short generator, create a short branded link, and then that's what you're going to send to the guest that was just on your show. And then you're going to submit it to iTunes, Google, Bing, and whatever. And you're going to make sure that your website is updated with it as well and distribute it to your social media network. Now, how to get guests. Stands to reason if you're going to use guests, you need to figure out a way to talk to somebody. Guests on your show help to establish you as an industry leader because reputations are earned through associations. Again, always pre-record. You can edit for maximum effectiveness. And again, you don't want to look silly if the guest doesn't show up. And also, guests have their own networks, so they can help spread the name of your show around. If you have a guest that likes your show so much that they are willing to be a repeat guest, I can guarantee you that their listeners are going to remember the name of your show because this person's on there so often, and they will actually come and subscribe to your show, which is what you want. Primary sources for getting guests that I like to use are LinkedIn, Twitter, and radio guest list. Let's start with LinkedIn. The prime benefit of using LinkedIn is that it's a database full of potential guests for your show. Most of the time, if you're in your tier 1, you can directly contact them. Otherwise, there's ways to bump up to tier 2 and 3. You already know what their backgrounds are because they're right there in their profiles and their portfolios are kept right there on LinkedIn. So you've already built up a rapport with them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in your tier 1. So just reach out to them and send them a direct message and invite them to be a guest on your show. Now, Twitter is another great resource for this. You can check out the types of tweets that they have before you even engage them. See if they fit your niche. If they do, you send them a direct message. And you can see how large their following is. Granted, that's not necessarily here nor there, because I would rather do business with someone who engages with 50 followers and they're talking all the time, as opposed to having 50,000 followers that you already know they don't talk to that often. What you want to do is, if you're going to use radio guest lists, they're going to require you to create an ad. The ad is going to include the specifics, like how long you're going to be running the ad, what topic the guest has to be knowledgeable about, and you're going to tell them things like how big the audience is, what's the date, what day your show broadcast airs, like Wednesdays or Tuesdays or whatever, and the time. You're going to talk about gender breakdown of the audience, age breakdown if you know it. And part of the benefit of getting guests this way is that all guests are always allowed to advertise their product, service, or business on your show. That's what they're there for, in addition to answering the questions that you have for them. Don't forget to include your contact details so they can send you their media kit or make contact with you. Now that we've done all of this, you want to record your show. So you've got the equipment, and we're going to put it to use. But before then, you got to have a space. And I don't care if it's your desk or your kitchen table. Once it's set up, you go in, you open your Audacity, and you're going to do a test. You're going to put on your headset, or if you're using headphones and mic, get that out. You're going to sit there and you're going to do your show intro, and then you're just going to record yourself doing a mock show. And you're also going to put your outro on it. Finish your talk, edit, check your work. See those little lines over there? That's what it's going to look like. Once you've listened to it and begin to play with the software to edit out all the extra breaths, ums, ahs, and so's, so you sound great. Then you do the same thing. Rinse, redo, and repeat. Practice makes perfect, or as close to it as one can get. You always want to turn out your best product. Create several episodes of your show, then upload them to your Google Drive folder. And remember to do the whole long link to the short link for each of the episodes. And then you can take those links and begin to distribute them. Now that we record it, let's talk about growing your audience. How to distribute a podcast. You're going to build a community around the podcast. You're going to encourage your audience by participating in the live chats if you have one. You're going to ask for feedback, conduct surveys, polls, that sort of thing. Keep your eye on your podcast analytics. You're going to also want to share. It's great, but you need them to rate you, especially if you're over on iTunes. As with any web content, social media integration is a must for your podcast to help your audience grow and keep an eye on you. So when you're setting up your social media, you need to figure out what platforms your people, your little avatar, these people are hanging out on. There are over 500 social media networks out there, and you really have to know which ones your listeners frequent. Not everybody is on Twitter, and not all Twitter users use Facebook. Now, if you need some help with this, I recommend using Successful Business Builders. They offer a social media web service special, and if you use this link, it'll take you to a special page for a special price on it, simply because you were here for this webinar. And they will perform the service and make sure that you get in front of the right target market. Another thing that you're going to have to do as part of your branding is you're going to have to create the same consistent profile on each of your media platforms. That's what the Successful Business Builders do that for you as well. You keep it short. You include your show name. You're going to include the tagline and the mission statement. You're going to include your URL and include the broadcast dates if you know them. Each site will be different, so it just depends upon how many characters you can put for a profile on that site. You're going to use your guest's audience. You're going to ask your guest to distribute the podcast link to their audience because it's going to multiply your reach. And as I said, if they're on the show more than once, you have really done something there. Hootsuite and Pingler combo. Okay, well, if you need to distribute out to your social media network, the free version of Hootsuite will allow you to use, you can have 5 up there plus RSS feed. You're going to go ahead and put the short link in there, or it'll create one for yourself. Type in a little bit of a description, tell who's on the show, and then you're going to send out via auto-scheduler. I'd recommend auto-scheduling that to go out at least for a whole week. Pingler, you're going to do the same thing, only you just need to create the link. Once you've created the link, it'll go ahead and send it out. Pingler operates internationally. Hootsuite is limited only by your social network that you plug into it. Pingler, on the other hand, if you're going to do a week's worth, you're going to have to hit them at least twice because you can only do them every 3 days for the same URL. Now, the way to really get your audience to go up, you engage with them. You're going to use the social media. You're going to use the email. You can also use a phone number. There are plenty of free VoIPs online that will give you a number that you can forward to your cell or whatever, and you just give that out. Like I said, if you're on iTunes, go ahead and ask the people who subscribe to your show to rate and review it. It helps to boost. iTunes loves that in the directory. It's the best way for your audience to feel like they matter. And that's, after all, what you want. Here are the 10 steps for podcast success. You're going to advertise for guests, if applicable. You're going to engage with potential guests, and you're going to ask them for their headshot, photo, book cover, all that, a bio. If they have a list of questions, they'll let you know. If not, you have your own. You're going to make sure you lock down that date to do the recording. You're going to do the show. Have that recording pre-recorded. You're going to edit the show using Audacity. You're going to upload that to your Google Cloud. You're going to copy that permanent link, the big long one. You're going to make it short. Then you're going to post the shows, that link on your website, and tell them that you got a new show. You're going to give the link to your guest and invite them to share with their network. You're going to advertise the appearance on your website and throughout all of your social media networks and let them know that you have this new guest. Oh, and the last recommendation for you is always record in a quiet place. All right, that's that. Let's see here. The floor is now open for questions. And someone actually sent me an email earlier that I said I would answer on this webinar, and they wanted to know about using newsletters. A podcast newsletter is a very great way to brand. Basically, it's you use your email capture software. You're going to set up your newsletter, only you're going to include your audio file on the newsletter so that when the people open it, they can just click on it and listen to your latest episode. It's a great way to spread the brand and get people engaged right away. Okay. Oh, back to the website. Okay, the question is, why do you have to have your own website? You don't have to. You can always create your show on any of the podcast hosting sites. In fact, it's a really good idea that you do. But the reason you want to have, as I said, your own website is nobody can take that media down. But what you can do, if you have your own website that does nothing else but show off your podcasts, you can go over onto those other host sites that you've created a show on and bring their player over to your site. And when people come to visit your site, they'll look over and see all these different players and go, wait, this person's really connected. As opposed to you only being one person on their multi-site. See what I mean? You're growing your brand, not theirs. So you want to do everything that you can. Now, if you want to keep those updated constantly, you just add them in as part of your social media agenda, or if you want Successful Business Builders to do it either way, or some other company that you may find, you can actually have them upload your episodes to them. Let's see, what else do we have here? How long does a podcast? Honestly, my very first podcast was 5 minutes. It was every Monday. I gave out job tips right after the crash happened, and all those people lost their jobs in 2008. I gave out the crash. I would give out their job tips because at the time I was a job coach. I had 10,000 listeners that showed up every Monday, which I didn't know until I started actually paying attention to the show statistics. And that, by the way, you can also go over to Google and get analytics and have them put into your website so that you can actually see what shows are generating the most hits, which pages, which archives. It's all going to read, and they'll give you a lovely little readout of that. And you can see, well, wait, this topic over here that we talked about has got way more people listening to it than this one over here. Maybe we should do a follow-up to that. Can't hurt. Always increase the brand. Any more questions? I know it's late, and we're going to wrap this up right now. Okay, I tell you what, if you have any more questions, feel free to email me. And for those of you who are in my meetup group, you can just hit me there or private message me. Let me give you some resources here. Again, we have sidemarkhosting.com. They offer the one-click WordPress, and they have the web builder. And if you put that code in there, they'll give you an extra 15% off when you check out. And as I said, they are giving at this time a free domain name with either of those two products. If you don't want to build your website on your own, then I would recommend using Tuxedo Branding. They offer this link here is going to get you a really great special. They will give you a website for your podcast just to start you out. That includes 5 pages of the blog, and putting your audio links, your audio feed in there so people can listen to the webcast. And they're going to do it for a really special low price. It's unheard of. And that includes hosting. So if you would need some podcast help, I'm always available. That's my special rate because we're nice enough to be on this webinar with me. I will sit with you and do one-on-one and help you set your podcast up from beginning to the end. You get 2 hours of my help. We can, manage that any way you want. If you would like me to co-host your podcast with you, I'm sure we can arrange that as well. Here's the contact information. Let's just throw that up there real quick. Once again, here you can find, that's my email coming up, contact_IVA@iolandaargent.com. There's the phone number, 916-367-4992. If you need coaching, podcast coaching, vid coaching, the whole nine, there I am, iolandaargent.com. You can also join the meetup group, which is /another speakers meetup. I'm on Twitter at @IVArgent, also on Facebook at @IolandaVArgent, and you can like the fan page, which is at @IVArgent as well on Facebook. And there you can catch my podcast shows at the IV Argent show. And we are at the end of that, so let's just stop sharing the screen. Oh, there I am. Hi again. Like I said, I'd like to thank everybody who tuned in this evening. I know it's hard. It's nighttime. You're ready. You're revving up for that great holiday weekend. Some of you might have taken off Friday. Independence Day is on Monday. I wish you guys a safe and happy holiday, and I will see you again real soon. Bye.